Welcome to Francis Quilts, the site dedicated to the wonderful art of quilting, with a few other fun things thrown in as well. If you like what you see here, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so that you can be notified of future videos. Hey guys, welcome back to Francis Quilts. My local quilt guild is getting ready to have our show, and I have 8 quilts entered. As I checked them today, I found that 7 of those quilts already have sleeves, so that's great. I only have 1 sleeve left to make. Unfortunately, I discovered that only 3 of those quilts actually have labels, and so I have 5 labels to make here really fast. Now, a label is a super important thing to have on a quilt. At the very minimum, you need the name of the quilt and your name and the date that you made the quilt. I also like to add where I am at the time, so I put my city and state. And for the date, I never know the exact date, so I just put the month and the year that the quilt is finished. Now, I know there are many different ways of making labels. Some people just write their name on the back of the quilt with the date. That works just fine too if you're using a marker that is permanent. Some people will take a piece of muslin and write their information there. Some people draw beautiful pictures on the back of their labels. People do all sorts of things. But today I just want to show you my process. This is just one way to make labels, but however you do it, be sure you label your quilts. I like to design my labels on my computer and then print them onto fabric that has been treated so that it will accept the inks and make it permanent. Since I have so many to do, you see 5 here, plus 2 others that I'm going to have in the boutique that I want to sell. It was important for me just to do it the fastest and easiest way possible. So this was the steps that I took. First, I opened a program. Now, you could use Word. I just happened to use PowerPoint. And I inserted a box that had a gray background. I decided that would be the most neutral thing that I could do all of them the same. Then I inserted a text box over that and put the information. You can see I wrote the name of the quilt. I put my name, where I lived, and the date that the quilt was finished. Now that I had one of these done, I could copy and paste it 6 more times, just changing the name and the date on each one of those. Very quickly, I had all 7 labels ready to print. Now, before I printed them on fabric, I printed them out on a piece of paper, just in black and white. This was just to make sure that I had plenty of room between them, that that they were all spaced nicely and that they would all fit perfectly on the sheet itself. Then I printed it on my fabric. Now, I used to use Printed Treasures fabric, and I absolutely loved it because it was soft. The printing did not change the hand. Now, they have quit making that, and so I've had to be on the lookout for another type of fabric. This one that I'm using is okay, but it makes the fabric a little bit stiff. And honestly, when you are working and trying to hand applique a stiff fabric, it is very, very difficult to do. So this is what I came up with to keep me from having to stitch through this stiff fabric. I have rough cut these labels out of my one piece of paper, and I'm going to take my square up ruler and I'm just going to make a cut here so that I'm inside this grayish background color. Doesn't matter how close I am or how far away I am. I just don't want to cut off any of my lettering. So I've done that. Let's get that one out of the way. Turn around and do it again. Again, I'm not worrying about what size this piece is. So now I'm going to take a piece of fabric that I think will look nice with the label, and I'm going to take this label and just place it on here like this and iron it in place so that it is fused down. I'll be right back. So now I have taken this label and I have ironed it down and fused it to this piece of blue fabric. The next step is going to be to cut out a square of blue fabric that is approximately 3/4 of an inch on each side away from the label. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to cut it here and here. And then let's turn it the other way. I'm not worrying too much about anything being straight except with the label itself. So I'm going to put 3/4 of an inch there. I've almost cut it too small, but it's going to work out just fine. So now I have my label cut with this fused on it. Let me get the ironing board and I'll show you the next step. Before I start working with this piece, I like to spray it, the back of it, with just a little bit of magic sizing. It just gives it a little more body as I'm making the folds. So it's sprayed, and then let's press it out and get it nice and dry again. Next, we are going to come back to the front, and I'm going to fold this piece under about 1/4 of an inch, so till I have about 1/4 of an inch left there, and I'm going to press it in place. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to be as even as you can be. Look here, let's get that edge tucked in under there really nice. And let's press it again. Keep coming around. And you know what? We have worked with 1/4 inches so much that we should be able to do this in our sleep. And then one last time. All right, I have my label. It's fused down onto this piece of fabric. I'm then going to sew this piece of fabric onto the quilt. Now, I want to make this a little bit more secure because this label could peel off. If it's just done with fusible, there's a potential of it peeling off. So I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew 2 rows of stitches all the way around. I'll be back. So now my label is sewn securely to this piece of fabric. And the nice thing about how I sewed it and the folds that I put in it before, when I turn it over, all of that fabric has been caught on the back, which is going to make it so very easy when I sew it down. I'm not going to have to worry about things sliding around. So now I can get my quilt, pin this in place, and when I have some time watching TV, I can stitch around it and have my label finished and ready to go. So all my labels are sewn and ready to be attached to the quilts. That's something that I can work on while we watch TV this week. I hope that you've learned something new in this video and that you were encouraged to be thinking about putting labels on all of your quilts. It is so important. You do not know how many of my mother's and grandmother's quilts that I have that do not have a label, so I have no idea when they were made or where they were living when they were made or anything else about them. So please, please, label those quilts. If you're interested in making a sleeve for your quilt, be sure and check the video that's linked. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on Frances Quilts.
Remember, if you like what you've seen, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please check out my website and daily blog at francesquilts.com, and I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Frances Quilts. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope to see you again soon.